Kan-E-Senna, the elder seer has grown strong enough to receive visitors. Come, we must go to Stillglade Fane at once.
Please. You must do something. But that's not right. Ahead you shall find Stillglade Fane, where the conjurers conduct their meditations. If you have business with them, you may proceed.
Go quietly within these caverns, lest you misunderstand. I speak not of such sounds as one's ears might hear. Here we open our hearts to the whispers of the elementals. Take care that you do not disturb this communion by bringing in tumultuous thoughts. We're being very hardworking and well-behaved, I promise. After all, if we don't train properly, we'll never be as good as you. Oh, Kan-E-Senna. Thanks to you, we may continue protecting our precious wood. That's what Brother Sumi was saying. Anyway, I'm not sure what he meant by that, but I hope you'll tell me more of your stories again sometime.
Kan-E-Senna? If you are still worried for me, you need not be. I will be fine, though I am glad you came to visit.
Elder seer, it fills my heart with joy to see you in better health.
I am gladdened by your presence as well, my friend. And lest you wonder, know that the conjurers found no trace of the poison in my humors. If you are ready, I would resume our search for Gleipnir.
They may be up to the task, but you are not. 'Tis one thing to engage in conversation, quite another to go gollivanting about the Twelveswood hunting a blasphemy.
I am aware you are a conjurer of surpassing skill, and would not presume to gainsay your judgment, but have my wounds not healed?
Those visible to the naked eye perhaps. I worry that the strain of your communion with the Great One has taken a toll on you in ways we may struggle to perceive. The Great One is a being of purest ether, and you were exposed to its unbridled despair. Its raw terror. There may be consequences.
I am aware of that, but Gleipnir must be stopped. Until the blasphemy is laid low, people will continue to die. How am I to carry out my duties cloistered here? How am I to deliver the forest and its people from this despair?
'Tis your duties that demand you remain. I understand your frustration, but if you were to fall in battle, if your guiding light you bear were to fade, then all Gridania would be lost. Rest, Gani, rest and gather your strength so that when the time comes, you are fit to do what must be done. In the meantime, trust in your allies.
You are right. That said, I see no reason I cannot join in planning our next step. As you said before, conversation is quite unlike gollivanting about on a hunt. Our encounter with Gleipnir has made it plain that we cannot hope to triumph over it as we are. Only with the Great One's power can we achieve victory. When the seventh umbral calamity was nigh, the Great One committed a portion of its boundless strength to extend a barrier over heaven and earth, the Irmin Hedge. Thus was the Twelveswood spared the worst. If we could convince it to again lend us even a small measure of that power, we would not need fear the poison. Therefore, I believe we should pour our efforts into placating the elementals, that we might earn their favor.
Ah, of course. You are the inheritor of Twelveswood. Rao and Rune praised the wisdom and bravery you displayed that day. Indeed, we were very nearly overrun by the creatures the Great One called to its defense. But this time is different. The Great One quakes with such fear that it cannot even bear to behold its enemy, let alone fight it. And so we must first find a way to dispel this fear that binds it, and reassure it that together we can defeat Gleipnir. Only then will it hearken to our words.
I think too that we must gain a greater understanding of what drives Gleipnir. It seems to be a resentment towards the elementals, the Great One in particular. Why?
I have pondered this question myself. Lingering memories of the person Gleipnir once was may be responsible. Reports from Rads-at-Han suggest this is likely the case, in fact. If we could but ascertain the original identity of the blasphemy. But where are we even to begin our investigation? You were granted a vision of Gleipnir's past? And I was there? Then I may know who he is. Or was.
As do I. The boy who trained alongside Kan-E in her youth.
Serpents. After all these years, is this what became of him?
You mentioned him briefly before. Were you close?
Sura was Padjali, like me. But he had never known his parents, and devoted himself wholly to his studies. He embraced the role the forest had bestowed upon him, and truth be told, was a much better student than I ever was.
A fair assessment. Despite your esteemed heritage, you never took to my lessons as well as he. Ever dreaming of the outside world. Stealing off into the woods more times than I can count. I could not keep watch over you at all hours, not even if I tried.
The elder Seedseer, a rebellious spirit. I can scarce imagine it.
I resented being a Padjal. It was inconceivable to me that I could not live among the others, and I did not scruple to express my misgivings to Sumi at every opportunity. Sura was a pillar of constant support. It was thanks to his encouragement that I at last embraced my destiny and resolved to use my gifts for the greater good. We would become seed seers together, I believed, until one fateful day, when we were gathering herbs in the forest at Sumi Yan's behest. We met a wanderer hailing from a distant land who told us his beloved was with child, and that he had traveled to Gridania to beseech the Great One for a painless birth. He asked us to guide him to the guardian tree. However, entry into such sacred places was not ours to permit, and there was something odd about his demeanor besides. With regret I refused him, but Sura was loath to turn away a goodly stranger in need. He agreed to guide the man, despite my protestations. I ran to Sumi Yan as fast as I could, and together we made haste to the guardian tree. We found the man motionless on the ground, having succumbed to the Great One's rage. And next to him was Sura, alive but unconscious.
In time he recovered and related the whole story. In truth, the man had been an adventurer, a seeker of wealth and glory, and as he had knelt to make false supplications, he lunged forward to tear a branch from the guardian tree. He was yet a child, and Sura had no inkling of the darkness that could dwell within men's hearts. He learned a lesson that day, but the price he paid for it was great indeed. The Great One stripped Sura of his horns, and with them the right to call himself a Patchel. I was forced to expel him from the fane. I never saw him again, nor heard a word of what had become of him, though not for lack of trying. Despite his hardships, did he remain in the Twelveswood all this time, I wonder?
He dreamed of naught else but becoming seed seer, of a life in service to the people and the forest. He knew the weight of the responsibility and was eager to bear it. But he was deprived of that purpose by the very elementals he loved. And yet, he did not lose that will to serve, I suspect, and instead resolved to watch over the Twelveswood in his own way. I shudder to think what could have hastened his transformation into Gleipnir. As if his life was not harsh enough.
In our final conversation, Sura confided in me that he would search for a means to calm the Great One's rage and earn absolution. To that end, he said that he would seek the counsel of the Mughals. They have called the Twelveswood home for far longer than we have, and so none are more like to have knowledge of its most hidden workings.
That comes as no surprise. He would not give up so easily on his dream. Even if the Mughals know naught of Sura, they may be able to help us in other ways. Will you travel to the bramble patch in my stead, Miqo'te? I have faith they will accept you with their characteristic aplomb.
Surely you can see that I am armed. If it's all the same to you, we don't want any. Move along, Cupo. Ha. Quite a peculiar face you have, Cupo. Familiar, too. You wouldn't be the self-same warrior who gave the legendary Mughal guard what for, would you? Kaneko time, was it? Aha. It's an honor to meet you. Allow me to thank you personally for bringing that silliness to an end. Hakwa Pika's the name. What brings you to our neck of the Twelveswood? Why, what a pleasant coincidence. We were just discussing how we ought to go about calming the elementals, Cupid. That blasphemy with the dreadful horns has got them on edge, and for good reason. I've had to ask my personal guard here to sleep with one eye open. In case you haven't noticed, the beast's corruption has been spreading all throughout the woods. Needless to say, we've all got to stand up and put the Twelveswood to rights. Reo suggested that the Mughals contribute by scouring the forest for even the smallest signs of taint. Got to cleanse it before it gets out of hand, you know. Difficult and time-consuming work, but if it's in service to the forest, then we'll do it gladly, Cupo. Hey, I know you. You're the adventurer who gave me some of my finest scars. Cupty Coop of the Mughal guard. No hard feelings about the whole hail to the king, Cupo, bit, I hope. Not going to call for a rematch either, in case you're worried about that. Rayo and the others cured us of our tempering, and afterwards sat us down for a stern lecture. No more calling upon good King Mughal MOG-12 for us, may he ever remain unsummoned in his royal grace and splendor. Indeed, and what better way to make up for past indiscretions than to serve the realm? Even now, our kin scour every ilm of the Twelveswood, and we would be remiss not to do our part. We would be overjoyed to have a hero such as you helping us as well, if you're willing. Something tells me you have a sharp eye for the taint we seek to cleanse. Can we count on you, Cupo? Your reputation for magnanimity is well deserved. Let's begin by moving to higher ground, that we may survey the area and locate any particularly nasty spots of blight. Oh, you were able to make your way up here after all. I was worried you'd be stuck. Apologies for leaving you behind, but it's so easy to forget that your kind lack wings, Cupo. Now then, where is it? There. To the south. Let us cleanse that festering taint at once. The grass here is so brittle, Cupo. Restoring this area will surely put pep in the Great One's step. If it had feet, that is. That was some fine work, Cupo. I dare say it's in even better shape than it was before. The others are doubtless flittering about, stamping out corruption wheresoever it rears its hideous head. If I were the Great One, I would be applauding our efforts. Well, insofar as such a being without hands can clap, I suppose. How goes the taint cleansing, Cuptiku? I did what I could, but I swear, as soon as I've finished with one area, two more start manifesting a fresh taint. The forest's ability to heal itself is waning, and this sickness is spreading too fast for even a legion of Mughals to manage. If we don't come up with a better solution soon. The situation is more grave than we imagined, Cupo. Oh. What do we do? We should maintain our efforts to purify the forest regardless. But since there are only so many of us, we must also help the forest to remember how to help itself. A brilliant idea. I think. How do we go about doing that? Well, I was just getting to that part, Cupo. I've got it. We perform the friending. The friending. What in the name of good King Mughal MOG-12, may he shower us with love and compassion and Cupo nuts, is that? Truth be told, I couldn't remember the ancient ride's name, so I just made something up on the spot, Cupo, but let's forget about that for now and move on to the stuff I do remember. It's an old ceremony, first performed when the nation of Gridania was but a spark of an idea of a random thought in its founders' heads. They knew that if they were to establish a home within the Twelveswood that they would first have to entreat the elementals for permission. So Imogen their company found and cleansed a few sources of foul ether, planting saplings in their place, and consecrated the soil with a prayer to show the forest the purity of their intentions. The elementals were so taken with his display that not only did they permit his people to settle within the forest, they also bestowed upon him their blessing as proof of their new covenant, Cupo. Ah, I remember now. The Gridonians still honor the agreement to this day. For every tree that is cut down, a sapling is planted. So, if we follow history's example, we can soothe the forest's pain and also nourish it with new life. That's right, Cupo. Oh, but I wasn't finished with the story. Remember the mage who planted those sacred saplings? He was none other than Jorin, sire of Miqo'te, the very first Pagel. From that day forward, the elementals would bless a select few His with horns, favoring them with their fellowship. The Pagel were exalted by all the peoples of the Twelveswood, even we Muggles look upon them with awe. And that's how it all began. Something wrong, Cupo? You have a strange look on your face. How dreadful, Cupo. But what exactly are you saying? So the man you think may have become Gleipnir was a Pagel stripped of his blessing, and the blasphemy kills with a poison that manifests symptoms that resemble those of the creeping death. I feel sorry for this Sura. To love the elementals, only to be shunned by them. To be surrounded by the beauty of the Twelveswood and know that he was forever an outsider. All for a child's mistake. That despair could easily have caused him to turn. And this poison that preys upon those who bear the Twelveswood's blessing, the his, just like the creeping death once did, might be another manifestation of that despair. That would explain the elemental's unease, Cupo. We must redouble our efforts to plant saplings or they might never speak to us again. Indeed. Well, first things first, we must gather as many saplings as we can. Kaneko time, wait for us at the adder's nest, and make ready for a long and back-breaking day.
Welcome back, Kan-E-Senna. Did the Mughals have any insight into our problems? A reenactment of the ceremony which laid the foundation of Gridania. A fitting plan, given the gravity of the threat our nation now faces. As ever, there is much work to be done before we can even begin. While the Mughals gather saplings, we shall continue to scour the Twelveswood for new beasts that must be purged. Let us pray that the Elder Seedseer regains her strength quickly as well. For now, take a rest, my friend. 'Tis a rare indulgence these days, and one you have earned 1,000 times over.